just like that, there we were. Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. It is Sunday evening, and I've been watching football all day after I've had a decent weekend after watching as much as I possibly could of two separate homicide trials all week long on WebEx in the virtual courtroom for Colorado. And it was a lot. Both cases involve victims who are unhoused, struggling with addiction, but they're marginalized victims, and they're both very emotional cases to listen to, and fascinating. Anybody who's been following it this far knows why I'm stuck in the rabbit hole right now. And I appreciate you guys studying these cases with me. Hi, Dandy. Good to see you. Dandy says, I hope you had a nice, relaxing weekend. It's been a good weekend. I don't know about relaxing. I'm all hopped up on caffeine. I spent most of yesterday either working on my puzzle or compiling the notes, but I focused only on the case against Jimmy West. So you guys already know that I'm covering both cases, or I'm researching both cases, and so I've got one friend helping me who is 100% focused on Colorado's case against John Unger, and then one person helping me who's 100% focused on Colorado's case against Jimmy West, and I'm bouncing back and forth between both. And then I spent Saturday reviewing all the notes from my friend who was working on Jimmy West. The reason why I'm doing that is because I know that on Monday there's going to be closing arguments in that case. They were actually going to have closing arguments on Friday, but yet another of the unhoused witnesses didn't show up under subpoena. The guy showed up for a little bit the day before, but they weren't able to get to him. And he came in and told some story about how he had fallen asleep behind the courthouse and missed the appearance. I don't know. Anyway, he was supposed to come back the next day to testify, and then he was going to be the final witness, and they were going to go to closing arguments. But he didn't make it. So they issued a warrant for his arrest, and then the police set out on a mission to find the guy and toss him in jail, and then force him to testify on Monday. And then we'll have closing arguments in the homicide case. Catherine, it's good to see you. So anyhow, he's not the only witness, by the way, who had to be arrested before they showed up to fulfill their obligation under subpoena. The first one was the defense's main witness, who actually they are saying is responsible for Zaria Hardy's death. The defense believes, or is at least trying to get the jury to believe, that this witness is the one who actually killed Zaria, not their client. And it's a compelling case. I mean, so I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of trial notes, but I do want to do that at the end of this. We're probably going to be here a couple of hours, but I just need to process this stuff before I go back into court tomorrow for closing arguments. And so anyway, that's what I did this weekend. I organized my notes and put both sets of notes into one document that makes sense, and then we'll start tomorrow fresh. But anyway, so right at the end of the day yesterday, the judge in the case said, I do not want you to look at the Daily Camera or the Longmont Times Call. And it was weird that she mentioned both of those specifically. So immediately in my brain, I'm like, oh, well, my God, I need to find out what she's talking about. They must have written some really good articles. So I wanted to review those articles with you guys. I haven't read them yet. And that's really the reason for the live stream. So I figured we would just go over those articles, and then I would go over my trial notes so far. It's not going to be an intensive study of all of my trial notes, but there's some big stuff that I want to talk to you about before closing arguments tomorrow. And I don't know, is anybody else watching the trial with me? Or is it just me? It's okay if it's just me, because I'm gathering enough that we're going to be able to study this case in the post-trial study group. But focusing on this case for tonight. So the thumbnail said, Colorado v. Jimmy West, streaming live on WebEx only, public observation, virtual courtroom, no recording, no replay, no circus. And I think that says it pretty well. There are no outside cameras allowed in the courtroom. And that's pretty much been the case, well, for lack of a better word, that it's pretty much been that way all throughout Colorado since WebEx became a thing. And because of that, court TV is not getting into the courtroom with, they don't have pool cameras. The court is it's up to the court what is put out to the public via WebEx. And that blocks the professional cameras out of the courtroom. It also gives them the ability to say, you can only watch these trials in real time. You cannot record the trial. You cannot replay the trial. You can't. Listen, I would be live all day, every day with this case if I could, but I can't. The testimony of the defense's hostile witness, which is Karrine or Kari or KiKi Willis, we would still be analyzing her testimony, but I can't even take a screenshot of it. And hi, Stacy, good to see you. And Stacy, since you're here, if I had to describe the defense's key witness, KiKi Willis, I would tell you to imagine Kayla Montgomery with bigger glasses and darker hair. Same type of hair. She seemed drugged out, only instead of zoned out the way that Kayla was, because Kayla was clearly on downers. I think she was on methadone during her testimony in New Hampshire. This one said that she had been in sober living for a couple of months in Aurora. But listen, her jaw was going, her eyes were bugged out. I have never seen a more frightened witness in all of my experience watching these trials, whether in person or online. She was scared. Jimmy West, the defendant, cool as a flippin' cucumber. Okay? But this witness, and because it's all so confusing, she didn't agree to be a witness for the defense. She doesn't want to be the third man or alternate suspect. She knows that she's being accused of murder, more or less. And so what we saw on the witness stand was basically more of a police interview, because the defense attorney of Jimmy West was doing the job of an investigator who's in an interview room with a suspect. I mean, that's what it seemed like. And that's not to say that, she hasn't been interviewed by police. She has several times, and she's behaved in crazy ways. At one point they went to go talk to her. They woke her up. She was sleeping outside somewhere. She threw a water bottle at one of the cops. I mean, it's a whole thing. And she's been caught in lie after lie after lie. Oh, Stacy, do you remember how many lies Kayla Montgomery was caught in? And she was still the best witness. Only she was a witness for the prosecution, right? Kayla Montgomery was a witness for the prosecution. KiKi Willis was a hostile witness for the defense. And that's an entirely different thing. So Stacy wants to know, did she do a proffer? So no, but outside of the presence of the jury, she was brought in custody because she didn't show up under her subpoena. So they arrested her and they threw her ass in jail. Okay. So she shows up to court on the day that she's being forced to testify. And she's clearly withdrawing from something. I don't care if she is living in sober living. No, let me say, in my opinion, I have to do this right. There's a fine line and a razor's edge, and I'm really going to try and respect it. I have to remember that I'm not just talking to friends. I'm on the internet, and I have a responsibility. Anyhow, okay, she did not do a proffer. They brought her in custody. They sat her where the jury was going to be sitting. I don't think in the witness stand, or maybe she was in the witness stand, but the jury wasn't present. See, that part is off camera, so I can't see it. Anyway, next to her is her attorney, and she's in handcuffs. She's got the chains around her waist, and her hands are cuffed in front of her in chains, right? And she's even wearing the same color scrubs as Kayla Montgomery was. It was wild. Anyway, so at that point, she's got her attorney next to her, and the jury's out of the room, and the defense attorney goes up to the podium, and she begins to tell KiKi what to expect with her testimony. And the reason that they're doing this is because she needs to be blatantly aware of her ability to plead the fifth at any time during her testimony, should it begin to incriminate her. Because like I said, this was basically a friggin' police interview. Okay, I know I'm excited. It was wild. And so before she testified, the defense attorney had to say, look, I'm going to ask you questions about this. I'm going to ask you questions about that. And at any point you can, you can wish to remain silent. So what the prosecution did, in hoping to aid in this woman being honest, because she's a liar. she's a Kayla Montgomery level, Letitia Stout level liar. Okay. The prosecution told her, look, just tell the truth. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. I have to. It's not recorded. Okay. The prosecution basically told her, look, tell the truth. Even if you're admitting to a crime, just tell the truth. We will not hold it against you, which is basically what a proffer is, right? So in that way, they offered her a limited sort of immunity up to violent acts against the victim, Zaria Hardy. So if you're going to admit to smoking meth, or you're going to admit to, prostitution, or you're going to admit to, stealing something from Circle K, whatever it was, be honest. Tell the truth about what happened. Not that they didn't want her to tell the truth about what happened to Zaria, but they were unwilling to give her immunity if she admitted to any violent acts against Zaria Hardy. And in that way, the prosecution is trying to tell her, if you admit to this, we're charging you, right? I mean, that's my interpretation, for what it's worth. It is wild. So she does not have immunity, and if she killed Zaria, she's absolutely going down for it. But they have to present their case in a certain way, and they can only do things in that certain way under the rules of procedure. But because this was such an odd and confusing thing, and here we've got a hostile witness in custody testifying against her will, having been accused by the defense of murder. I mean, you could imagine she was scared shitless, and she admitted to being scared on the stand. And I'm telling you, if I would have been able to record this testimony, we would probably still be on that same live stream. It was wild. And I have really good notes. I'm not reviewing my notes. I'm just blabbering on, like processing it with you guys. We have a lot more work to do to study this later. But we can't record it. So I'm just doing the best that I can with a little help from my friends and you guys, and Stacy says immunity is such bullshit. And I mean, I get it. Especially as we get into my trial notes and I show you, I have maps and I have Google Maps images of where all these things are going down, and I can't wait to get to it. But the reason I went live tonight, and I'm going to try so hard to stick with it, the reason I went live tonight is to talk about media coverage, because I want to see what everybody else is saying before we go into closing arguments tomorrow. And like I said, she mentioned the Daily Camera and the Times Call. Specifically, there are other outlets reporting on it. My favorite, my personal favorite, is the Boulder Reporting Lab. But then, of course, there are the Denver Sevens and, the news channels and all that. I want to look at all of it because we are not the jury. In fact, let me throw the jury up on the screen here, right? If I can find it. Where's my jury? Hi, Kilo. Kilo has arrived. My co-host is in the building. Okay, so now that we've got the jury on the screen, I almost forgot. Are you going to make me take you out right now? The thumping is his tail against my chair. I might have to put you guys on a brief hold. Let me find a video for them to watch or something first. Okay? Okay, just wait. Just wait. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. Kilo, Anyway, where were we? Uh-oh, Kilo. Okay, the Daily Camera. Before we do that, so Jimmy West in January of 2025 looks like this. And Jimmy West in December of 2025 looks like this. And this is a photo from the Daily Camera. I'll provide links, and we're going to read the article that it goes to. But I have to take Kilo out before he loses his mind. So brief hold. I'll be right back, I swear. And we're back. Okay, I'm so sorry. Normally I get him out before the live stream. Okay, so let's read this article. Let me check on you guys over in chat. Okay. All right, so the headline reads, defense attorneys argue friend, not defendant, killed 19-year-old homeless woman in Boulder. In fact, let me go ahead and share the screen. Share screen. Daily Camera. Okay, here we go. So the headline reads, nope, it's not on the screen. Is this the right one? Oh, I see. Sorry, I'm out of practice. Look, you guys know I'm not like, I'm doing the best I can. Okay, there we go. All right. Defense attorneys argue friend, not defendant, killed 19-year-old homeless woman in Boulder. And then the subtitle reads, Jimmy West, 53, is accused of buying Zaria Hardy in exchange for drugs for her boyfriend. And that is the narrative that we have all heard since January of 2025. That Zaria's on-again, off-again boyfriend, which every time he comes up at trial, and he's come up several times with different witnesses, and they'll say his name, and they'll say, and who is that? And then the answer is on-again, off-again boyfriend. They're always very careful to say exactly those words. Anyway, the headlines throughout for this entire year, and last time that I went live, we read the affidavit of probable cause again. We've done it before. In the affidavit of probable cause, it says very clearly that Zaria's boyfriend, Nickolas Shepard, sold her to to Jimmy West for drugs on the day she was murdered. And that this KiKi person, Karrine Willis, was responsible for taking Zaria from the boyfriend to Jimmy's spot. And what Jimmy's spot means is his homeless encampment behind the Microsoft building. Okay? And this is what we've heard for a year. That is not what has been presented at court. The prosecution keeps wanting to talk about how Jimmy West's story changed from July to December, or I'm sorry, from July to January of the next year. And in 2 separate interviews, his story changed. But can we talk about the prosecution's story for a second? Because the math ain't mathin'. Nickolas Shepard is nowhere. Where the hell is Nickolas Shepard? You know, Zaria's on again, off again boyfriend, Nick, who we've heard through the headlines sold her for drugs, which is no part of the story at trial. It's what? Fucking what? I don't understand it. God, I wish I could have recorded or streamed this trial. It is fascinating. Okay. Hey, listen, for fair use, I have to add commentary, so you can't expect me to bring it all the way through. So no wonder, now listen, I am only speculating. I am only guessing that when the judge said, whatever you do, don't read the Daily Call, or I'm sorry, the Daily Camera or the Times Call, and the very first thing I see when I go to the Daily Camera is defense attorneys argue friend, not defendant, killed 19-year-old homeless woman in Boulder. Yeah, we know. If we're the jury and we're looking at this when we're not supposed to, we know that. That's what's been presented at trial. But this subtitle that says Jimmy West, 53, is accused of buying Zaria Hardy in exchange for drugs for her boyfriend. And remember, there are 2 charges in this case. The first charge is first-degree premeditated homicide after deliberation. The second charge is human trafficking for sexual servitude. Nick, the on-again, off-again boyfriend, was never arrested in connection to this case, but he was arrested on a separate charge. In fact, I think I might have that handy. It's not going to be on that page. Give me a second. Okay, so yeah, this is when Nick was arrested. And it just shows he was arrested for menacing and intimidation. And this arrest happened right before the arrest of Jimmy West. And during a police interview that happened as a result of this unrelated arrest, Nick Shepard told investigators that he sold Zaria to Jimmy West in exchange for drugs. Now, I haven't heard it myself, but it says so in the damn affidavit, and that's what all the headlines say too. Man, I am excited. Sorry, guys. And now he's just nowhere. I assumed this whole time that he was going to be the prosecution's greatest witness. And this KiKi or Karrine person as well. I assumed that Nick and Kari, KiKi, had turned on Jimmy West, and Jimmy West was arrested for her murder. But that is not what's being presented. And Stacy says, shouldn't Nick be accused of the human trafficking? And I mean, listen, I'm not one to say what they should or shouldn't do, and I'm real careful not to interfere in these investigations. I am not, in fact, a citizen detective, and I am not investigating this case. I'm a public observer, and I'm looking at the work of detectives, law enforcement, elected officials like the district attorney, just as a public observer. Okay, maybe a public observer turned independent journalist, right? Because when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro, or so I've heard. I'm not the one to say who should be accused of what, but I will say that when I went live with you guys on Wednesday night or whatever it was, I don't know, last week's kind of a blur. When I went live on Wednesday, it wasn't. I don't know how to say this without getting myself in trouble, so I'm just going to skip it. I have to be very careful. I'm not. Well, okay. What I should. Okay, here's what I should say. Sorry, I just want to be so careful. What I should say is that I wasn't sure on Wednesday if we were going to dig any deeper than what we're seeing here on WebEx with the trial and the things that I can report to you for future study with my note taking. I didn't know if I was going to get the case file, I didn't know if I was going to get jail calls. I didn't know if I was going to look into, whatever, body camera footage, police interviews. And after the end of the week's testimony, and all they played was a few little clips of some police interviews that are confusing, and that, I know it's said all the time that it leads to more questions than answers. I know that's incredibly overused, but that's what's happening. There are way more questions than answers after the first week of trial. And this trial is going so fast that on the same day as opening statements, we were looking at autopsy photos on the same day. Remember, Letitia Stout was what, like 5.5 weeks, something like that? And the autopsy photos didn't come until day 1 of week 2 in her trial. And in this trial, we've got autopsy photos on day 1 after opening statements. It's crazy. This case is crazy, and I wish I was actually watching it, able to discuss it with you guys in real time. It sucks. It sucks that we can't, but it is what it is. But now that I have seen it myself, and now I really want to tell you guys about it, not in this way that I'm blabbering right now. This is not me storytelling. This is me working through it and processing and getting my mind right before court tomorrow so I can continue to take really good notes. Because it's the best we can do. And we're lucky to have it. So many other cases, there are no cameras in the courtroom and there's no WebEx live stream. So anyway, I'm definitely getting those police interviews. I don't think I'm going to go as far as getting the case file. I don't want to dig into this case to the level that I dug into other cases. But I have to at least, I'm not going to, based on me watching 4 total days of trial with other people also taking notes, and I do admit that I didn't watch the whole thing, but that's why I have the notes and other people, right? I'm more confused than I was when it started. When it started, I thought I knew what to expect. The affidavit of probable cause was very clear, but now the prosecution's story has changed, and the defense, in my opinion, is making them look like they absolutely do not have their shit together. Now they've had some amazing witnesses, and the lead detective on this case is a stellar witness. Vitamin DD's in the house. Hi, DD. He's an excellent witness. I don't mean to be talking negatively about the prosecution. The prosecution, like detectives, they have their hands full. How do you prove that someone who is active in drug addiction, active in other things, unhoused, living on the streets, in the woods, in this community of transient folks, how do you can't prove these cases the same way. But one thing I did pick up on this week, I remember hearing earlier in the week, and I don't remember who said it, and I'm not going to look that closely at my notes for tonight's YouTube presentation. 70 agents of law enforcement, 70 agents, 70 separate agents worked on this case. I think the word that he used was agents, and I think it was Detective Scott Byers who said it. Or 70, 70. I know he didn't say 70 detectives or 70 officers. I think he might have just said agents. But anyway, 70 different people worked on this case on the side of law enforcement. And it was an active investigation for 18 months. They arrested Jimmy West 6 months after Zaria's body was found, and they have like a 2-day window of when her body might have been put by the dumpster on that bicycle cart. They can't really be too sure. They narrowed it down the best that they could. But if I'm the jury, I'm like, okay, so we don't know exactly when, but we have a best guess of when it was probably put there. But that is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Jimmy West dumped that trailer by that dumpster. I'm not saying he didn't do it. If you ask me my personal opinion, it's a Frazee-esque situation where there are more people involved. Only with Patrick Frazee, the other person was the state's lead witness. And with Adam Montgomery, the other person was the state's key witness. But that's not the way this case is going. And so I think that there's a good possibility that it might lead to acquittal. I do not believe yet, and we have one more witness, right? But I do not believe yet that they have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Jimmy Little Bear West killed Zaria, Z is what everybody called her, Hardy. That doesn't mean I don't think he did it. I'm talking about whether or not the prosecution has proved it. And this thing is so convoluted, it's not even funny. And why the hell haven't we seen Zaria's boyfriend? Excuse me, on again, off again boyfriend. He admitted to selling her for drugs, but apparently that wasn't true. And they haven't proven. Now there's this, so Karrine or KiKi, they have her on camera walking Zaria to Jimmy's spot on the last day she was seen alive. So KiKi is the last person to see Zaria alive. But Jimmy Little Bear admits that Zaria was taken to the camp, that she showed up at the camp. It's all so confusing. I think I've taken it too far. All right, I got to reel myself back in, you guys. I'm not supposed to be going through trial notes, and this is all from memory, and that's dangerous. Let's get back to the reason why we're here, which is to look at the media coverage and then talk about trial notes. Ooh-wee, this is just so much. And I know that you guys would be as into this case as I am if we had permission, but we don't. What we have is this, okay? So, and these are good articles, but they're not digging into all the crazy details that, anyway. Okay, defense attorneys claimed a friend of the victim, not the defendant, killed the 19-year-old woman in opening statements in a Boulder County murder trial. Jimmy West, 53 in April, pleaded not guilty to 1 count of first-degree murder after deliberation and 1 count of human trafficking for sexual servitude in the January 2024 killing of Zaria Hardy. Police say West wrapped Hardy in layers of blankets, covered her with a tent, and placed her in a motorcycle trailer in the area of Goss Street in Boulder. It was a bicycle trailer. She had a motorcycle cover over her head. So, see what I mean? I want to watch the stuff myself. I'm not, look, it's totally an understandable mistake, right? But it's not, she wasn't on a motorcycle trailer. She was an 87-pound young woman who was strapped to a bicycle trailer. And that's different than a body on a motorcycle trailer. It's just different. Anyway, her then boyfriend, okay, so this time it doesn't say on again, off again. This says that they were on at the time, according to this article. But that's not what they're saying in court. Okay. Her then boyfriend later admitted to selling Hardy to West in exchange for drugs. That's true enough. Stephanie Grismer, one of West's defense attorneys, said prosecutors have the wrong guy and that West was actually a friend to Hardy. Grismer said Karrine Willis, one of the prospective witnesses in the case, and Hardy's friend knew the woman died of head injuries despite that information not yet being public. So that's another thing I didn't mention earlier, is that KiKi has allegedly confessed to 2 other people that she killed her. Oh, this case, I swear. Okay. Quote, KiKi told her friend that she committed this crime, unquote. Grismer told the jury. I guess I don't have to say quote and unquote. Oh, bear with me. Okay. KiKi told her friend that she committed this crime, Grismer told the jury. You will hear that. KiKi could not stop thinking about what she had done. Grismer also argued that evidence found tying West to the murder was faulty and not at all conclusive. And I can't argue with that. Hardy was wrapped in a tent after she was killed, and part of that tent was in West's Boulder campsite when police searched his camp. See, now that's a little misleading because her body was found on July 14th, and the campsite had already been searched. You know, they showed up at that campsite on July 17th. So the last time she was seen alive was the 10th. Her body was found on the 14th, and they were in Jimmy West's campsite, Little Bear's spot, as soon as July 17th. So after several searches, or at least one search, we'll put it that way, because I'm not looking at my notes. After at least one search, a time when they went back, then a little bit further down the creek, just behind them, there was a piece of tent material that was tied to a branch on a tree that was a perfect match to the tent material that Zaria was wrapped in. But there are a bunch of other details that mean, like, this is also, so that tent piece was found on August 1st. And the encampment, while everything was left in place, was not sealed off as a crime scene. It's a wooded area next to a creek behind a commercial building. It's not a secure anything. And that makes it hard for them to prove that whose belongings are whose and what, I mean, there's just so much to it. Okay. Though the tent was West's, Grismer said, it does not mean West used it himself. Prosecutors had earlier told the jury that West claimed the tent and the belongings found with Hardy's body were recently stolen. Of course, these people steal shit from each other all the time. Or they give it away, or they, or it ends up on, anyway. Okay, let me try to focus. West sat at the defense table on the opposite side of the courtroom to the jurors, smiling to the judge and nodding along with Grismer's opening statements. And he is confident, and he is calm and cool, and he is collected. Again, that doesn't mean he's innocent. But there are a lot of things that lead me to believe he will be found not guilty. Especially the jury questions. Oh my God. Anyway, okay. I can't wait for the post-trial study group. I promise that when we go over this stuff at the post-trial study group, I will not be as excited by the craziness of all of it. So Grismer further argued that prosecutors will not be able to prove West had any motive to murder Hardy, calling West's arrest a best guess. That was hard to say. But it really does seem like a best guess. And we will definitely be getting all of the interview footage, the police interview footage that we can get. And then we'll study that, compare it to this media coverage, compare it to the probable cause affidavit, and compare it to my notes from the trial itself, regardless of what the outcome is. He could very well be convicted of Zaria Hardy's murder. And then Karrine Willis may or may not be arrested for her role. I doubt that Nickolas Shepherd will be arrested. You know, he's nowhere to be found in this whole deal, but he's certainly the biggest part of the headlines. He's the biggest part of the headlines, and he's nowhere. What is that? Why? It's upsetting. I don't know what to believe at this point. So I'm really being hard on the evidence. And when it comes to reasonable doubt, I absolutely have reasonable doubt. If I were on that jury, I would vote not guilty and I would feel like shit about it. Because absolutely he had something to do with it. Absolutely he did. And people can be convicted on circumstantial cases, but there is a good chance that he didn't, because it was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, even with the circumstantial evidence, that he committed the crimes that he is accused of committing. And after KiKi's testimony, I mean, it's obvious why she was a witness for the defense. It was also obvious that she has no idea what she's doing. Okay? She's like 33 years old. She said that Zaria was like her little sister and she was Zaria's big sister. And during opening statements, the defense said that Zaria was well liked within the homeless community and that everybody tried to help her and looked out for her. But when KiKi was on the stand, KiKi said that everybody in the homeless community couldn't stand Zaria, especially the women. And that KiKi was actually the only woman who was ever nice to Zaria. And, you know, trigger warning, I'm going to, do you remember back to the trial against Letitia Stout and the way Letitia used to talk about how Gannon had soiled his pants? That is the exact same way that KiKi talks about Zaria. Because Zaria, before being walked to Jimmy's camp, to Little Bear's camp, had soiled herself. She had soiled her pants. And so they were allegedly going to get her cleaned up, get her some different clothes, you know, and then they ended up smoking meth with her, but you know, that's beside the point. Oh, and she had a little bit of sex with Jimmy. But it's so obvious. So the defense absolutely busted KiKi on the stand, lying about the fact that she had left that day. She says that she just dropped Zaria off and then went somewhere else and then came back and then he got mad at her, so she left again. And she just thought Zaria was gone and she knows nothing about it. And KiKi was also very careful to not throw Jimmy West under the bus at all. Okay, they asked her point blank, "Are you afraid of the defendant?" And she's like, "No. Why would I be? No." And then they had to impeach that testimony by saying, "Do you remember telling this detective that you were afraid of Little Bear? Do you remember telling this detective during this interview that you were afraid for your life and you were afraid of Little Bear?" And she's like, "No, I don't remember any of that. No." But then rather than refresh her recollection by using the actual interview footage, which is what I would have expected, they just moved on to the next thing, leaving us unsure as to whether she actually said that to the detectives or not. I mean, the defense could have totally made it up. I have to see the interviews for myself. But it was so obvious that she was lying, not because of that, but when she talked about leaving, she said, you know, the way she described the camp was that it was clandestine. She didn't use that word, obviously. But, you couldn't see it from the road. You couldn't see it from the parking lot. You couldn't see into it. It was pretty private. It was secluded, right? But then later in her testimony, or at a different point in her testimony, she says, no, I could see from where I was when I dropped the stuff off and I was just leaving. I could see from where I was that, Zaria wasn't in there. So I knew that she was okay, or, something along those lines. Again, we'll get through this when I go through my actual notes, which are going to be way more accurate than I am from memory after a really long week. And I haven't checked on chat forever. I've just been babbling. Okay. Anyhow, my God, man, where was I? Oh, we were reading an article. Anyway, she's a liar. That's my point. And at the end of her testimony, okay, one more thing. At the end of her testimony, before getting up in front of the jury, she goes, okay, does that mean I can go home now? And the way that, okay, because it's such a confusing case, it was bench conference after bench conference after bench conference where they turn off the volume and attorneys for both sides go up to the judge and they have a private conversation arguing things that the jury doesn't need to hear and that the public and the gallery doesn't need to hear. And it happened over and over for extended periods of time. And this one, and the whole time the camera is on the witness. And she was a mess. And she did this thing where she cried for Zaria, but no tears came out. And she wiped her. I mean, it was a police interview. It was so crazy. Okay. I'm sorry. So anyway, back to the point in the article where the defense attorney says that it's their best guess, but they can't prove it. Which so far, in my opinion, is true. But I'm not on the jury, so don't worry about it. Okay, you may get up out of those chairs at the close of evidence and go back to the jury deliberation and think to yourself, who killed Zaria Hardy? Grismer said to the jurors. After an 18-month investigation, that's where we are today. With her point being that even after trial, we're not going to know for sure who killed Zaria Hardy. So you can't convict her client because they didn't prove he did it. They just proved that it was homeless drug addicts doing what homeless drug addicts do. But they cannot prove sex trafficking and they cannot prove murder, according to the defense. So then this article, and it's interesting because the way that it happened, the prosecution stood up and gave their opening statements, and then the defense stood up and gave their opening statements, right? But this article presents it in such a way where they talk about the defense argument and then they tie it up with the prosecution opening. Boulder County Deputy District Attorney Alexander Clark said West was inextricably tied to Hardy's death, citing that a piece of the tent found in his camp matched the tent wrapped around Hardy's body. I want you to take note of this story, Clark said, how the story is not consistent with itself. Yeah, no shit. No truer words have been spoken. But it's not just the defendant's story. It's the defense's story. It's the witness's story. It's the prosecution's story. It's the detective's story. And there are other people that could have, should have been witnesses. And I don't just mean her on again, off again boyfriend, Nickolas Shepard. We'll get into it with trial notes. Okay. Definitely the people from Circle K. All right. Anyway, Clark described West's interviews with police as flimsy and told jurors that West claimed the exact items found with Hardy were stolen. West also told police that he had 2 identical bicycles, which is why he was seen riding one that looked like the one found with Hardy's body, according to Clark. That's not accurate. No bicycle was found with Hardy's body. And I hear Kilo, which means I need to go let him in. So we're going to take another very quick pause. I will be right back. I apologize. I'm coming. Cookie. All right, here's your cookie. There you go. Okay, he's back inside and has a cookie. I didn't mean to leave that comment on the screen for quite so long. And I didn't realize that I wasn't sharing my screen still. All right. I'm doing the best I can right now, guys. We're just winging it. This is like a study/therapy session for me. Thank you for being a part of it. Okay, where were we? Back to the article. I have to take this down and then share my screen again. There we go. Okay, so back to the article. Oh, okay. So I wanted to say why this was inaccurate, which was that, there was no bicycle that was found with her body. But see, these little details that sound like they go together, when somebody just tells the story who didn't pick it apart the way that I do, that's good enough, right? Like but that's not accurate. And that's not to say that I don't make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but that's why we study, which is what we're doing now, is, because of those mistakes that are very easy to make. But the way that it's presented, what you think you heard was, there's this exact match and they're sure that it belongs to the defendant. Which anyway, in this situation, because of the nature of the transient lifestyle, it's just very hard to prove. Okay. Hardy's body was found about 500 feet away from West's camp, Clark noted. The Boulder County Coroner's Office found that Hardy died by homicide, sustained at least 3 blunt force strikes to the head, suffered abrasions, and may have died in part of asphyxia because of the tape over her mouth, Clark said. He described Hardy's murder in stark, harrowing terms before pointing to West, calling him the killer. West describes giving her a yellow T-shirt. It says Buff Family on it, Clark said. It was found on Zaria's body. Yes, and it was a T-shirt that was given to him or to her by Jimmy West. He had it in his backpack. It's a CU Boulder Buffaloes shirt. It says Buff Family. And he did give her those clothes because she had just soiled herself at the park. There's also a part of the story where he had given KiKi money to go to Goodwill to buy some clothes for her because they were trying to clean her up and help her. But then they smoked meth with her. Anyway, does her wearing that T-shirt prove that human being killed her? It does not. But it's one small piece of this overall picture. When we were talking about opening statements, and I will look at my notes for this one, I was looking for the verbiage. That's okay. Another time. But basically they were talking about the totality of the evidence and the entire thing that they wanted you to look at, because all of the circumstantial evidence really points to the defendant, which may be true, but does it prove circumstantially guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't know. Weirder things have happened. I do know that based on the testimony and just what I've seen, KiKi, who was probably released from jail before the weekend, She should probably be really careful what she does. I mean, I can't believe she hasn't been arrested for this crime. That's all. Okay. Anyway, like again, we're talking about me processing my thoughts and feelings, and these are my opinions, and I want to be careful. Okay. And remember, I don't know these people. I just watched her testify. It's just based on watching her testify. Clark also said the shorts Hardy wore when she was found were a gift from West. Yeah, that's because he gave KiKi money to go to Goodwill. KiKi came back with butane and a torch instead of clothes for Zaria, who had soiled herself. That's what it seems like. Okay, besides the tent piece, and at no time has anybody proven that she was brought there for sexual favors. Were they doing drugs? Did they do what people do in that? Oh, anyway. Besides the tent piece, the trailer, West acknowledged that the blankets and trailer used to... Besides the tent piece, the trailer, West acknowledged that the blankets and trailer used to wrap and hide Hardy's body were his, Clark said. The trailer, West acknowledged that the blankets and trailer used... I don't know what he's trying to say there. Okay. Clark also, he or she, I don't know who wrote the article. Abigail. Okay. Probably just a simple typo. I'm sure it makes sense. Clark also told jurors Hardy's purse was found at West's campsite. Tape consistent with the tape pulled over Hardy's mouth was also found at West camp, as was rope that matched what was used to tie Hardy's body up, Clark said. Mr. West is responsible for the death of Zaria Hardy, Clark said. And looking at everything in that, so if I'm just thinking back in testimony and what I saw myself, and then the notes that I read yesterday of the things that I missed, it's if I'm the jury and I'm tossing this around in my mind, yeah, we know that she was at the camp, but Jimmy West claims that he left the camp, and KiKi claims that she left the camp, but there's proof of neither one doing that. But there is proof of Jimmy and KiKi together walking down the street on July 11th, which is the day after the last day Zaria was seen alive with KiKi. It's not funny. I just, and that would be a big question for me if I'm on the jury. If they were both charged with homicide, it would make a whole hell of a lot more sense. And also, can somebody please tell me what happened to Zaria's boyfriend? Because he's the one who said that she was sold for drugs. I couldn't convict based on what I've seen. I personally could not convict based on what I've seen so far. Now we're going to have another witness. And for me, I feel like that witness, so he's going to be there Monday morning. And the reason they're calling him to testify is because he dated KiKi after Zaria's death. And he's one of the people that she allegedly confessed to, that she had done it. And allegedly she confessed to him by saying that she stabbed her in the head a bunch of times. And that's before that was public information. The issue is that she wasn't stabbed in the head. According to the autopsy, it was blunt force injury to the head. But remember, there was also a motorcycle cover that was over her head. And one of the other details was that there was a hole cut in the motorcycle cover where Zaria's mouth would have been underneath it. So her mouth was taped. Her head was covered with a motorcycle cover. At one point, that was cut open. And so if KiKi has confessed to stabbing Zaria in the head a bunch of times, and that's what killed her. Now, Zaria did have lacerations on her head, but there were no stab wounds in the motorcycle cover. And there were all these reasons that proved it was actually blunt force. But they don't know what the murder weapon was. They don't know the exact day, and certainly not the exact time that she was killed. They don't know where she was killed. And that's where the defense's argument about it being the best guess really comes into play. It's nuts. This case is something else. Okay. Hardy's body was found badly decomposed and tied to a bike trailer on July 14th, 2024, according to a police affidavit from the case. Through video surveillance and interviews with witnesses, police determined that Hardy was taken to West's campsite for sex just north of 1631 17th Street in Boulder, about 500 feet from where she was later found dead. And we're going to go through all of that here in just a bit. Police said Thursday that Hardy is believed to have been dead for several days when she was found. Yeah, several days. Last time she was seen anywhere by anyone was on camera with KiKi going to Little Bear's camp. But that doesn't mean that her body was put there on the 10th. The body was found on the 14th, and the neighbors, the people who, there are some people who lived in the apartment complex, and also the property manager of the apartment complex, who can confirm that by Thursday it was already there, which is the 11th. But the defense kind of knocked a hole in that and pushed that back to Friday. You can't prove it. He has a foggy memory that it might have been Thursday, but it was definitely there before he left town on Friday. So what we know for sure, is that Zaria's last seen on the 10th, and on the 12th, the property manager leaves town, and he knows for sure it was there before then. And the same goes true with the other resident of the apartment complex who found the body. She said that it had been smelling for a while, and homeless people leave crap by that dumpster all the time. They leave stuff there. So people ignore it. And she thought maybe the smell was just coming from the dumpster and it was like rotting food or something. But no, it was this trailer that was it's the bicycle trailer next to the dumpster. But according to that witness, it had been there for a few days. But she couldn't say for sure how long it had been there. So we don't know exactly, so between July 10th, when she was seen on camera with KiKi, and July 14th, when 911 is called because they find a dead body. And then they trace back and find out that it's been there since at least Thursday or Friday, for sure. We don't know at what point between the 10th and the 11th and the 12th that her body was put there. We do know that on the 14th, which is the day her body was found, Jimmy West had police interaction in Commerce City. He said that he went out of town for a week, and because he had interaction with the police while he was gone, it shows that he really was, in that place. But it doesn't prove he was there for a week. But again, this is where all this reasonable doubt comes in my opinion. Okay, Hardy's body was found. No, we already read that. Police wrote that West admitted the trailer Hardy was found on was his, but lied about the last time he'd seen her, according to the affidavit. And when you listen to the interview itself, it's one of those things like, did he lie? Or was he just up for a few days? Was he spun out? Did he need a nap? Anyway, I'm not saying that's the case. These are the questions that I ask myself, right? Police said during the initial investigation that they did not believe that there was any threat to the general public and that the incident seemed to have happened between two people who knew one another. Police said Thursday that Hardy and West knew one another and were both unhoused at the time. That much is not disputed. Okay. Before we go any further, I do want to just put a picture of Zaria on the screen. This is Zaria Hardy. I'm not sure when this photo was taken. It could be that she lost a bunch of weight between December. I'm assuming it's December. She's wearing a Santa hat. Between December of this year, that in this photo, and July of 2024, this is what she looked like closer to her death and disappearance. And in this photograph is the on again, off again boyfriend, right? She had a lot of contact with something called the homeless outreach team, and we're going to get into that as well. Oh, there's just so much. Thank you guys for sticking this out with me. Man. Okay, so I want to go ahead and read the second article, which is going to be some of the same, but these are the two articles that the judge specifically told the jury not to even look at these publications, not for any other articles. The judge said not to just avoid articles about this case, but she told the jury to avoid those two publications entirely. Like, don't read them at all, which is why that's where we're starting and why we're reading those articles. So the Times Call, the headline reads, defense attorneys argue friend, not defendant, killed 19. Wait a minute. Isn't this what we just read? Okay, now I'm confused. It's the same picture and everything. Okay, hold on a second. Daily Camera, Jimmy West stands trial in Boulder. Yeah, okay. So it's the same article. So I guess we will just go on to the next thing. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I know that this isn't as interesting to most people as it is to me, but as I continue to put it together, I hope to do something that people will be interested in. And if that's a written article, then so be it. I have to get it all together in my mind before I can present it to anyone. So, that's where the post-trial study group comes in. Okay, I also had to get a drink. Okay, so what is the next thing that I want to do? I'm going to go ahead and remove the images of Little Bear and Z and the boyfriend. So his street name is either Skillz or Skittles. I think it's Skillz, but I don't know for sure. So I'm not willing to put it in print yet. Let me get back to the right layout. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do, I want to go over before I do the images. Okay, here's what we're going to do. So now I have to take this back off again. Before we go through the images, I'm going to share my screen again. And this time, I'm going to share it on something called the Homeless Outreach Team from the City of Boulder's website. And let me make sure that that is added to the stage. There we go. Okay, so the homeless outreach team. Outreach team coordinates efforts among advocacy groups and service providers. Law enforcement personnel are constantly challenged to balance the individual freedoms of homeless residents while improving the overall health, safety, and welfare of the community. Why was the homeless outreach created? We found that we were dealing with the same individuals on a regular basis and created the team as a means to break the vicious cycle. Our focus is to get the homeless engaged in resources that will positively change their situation. We are present and visible in areas where homeless gather in order to normalize police presence, increase visibility, and build trust. Identify and proactively patrol secluded areas occupied by homeless, and actively seek out those who are not engaged with homeless service providers. Develop working relationships with homeless individuals in order to provide appropriate resource referrals. And then there's contact information, resources. There's actually a guide to homelessness in Boulder. It sounds like a tourist trap. What is a guide to homelessness in Boulder? What? Oh, it really sounded like a travel brochure, didn't it? Hey, you want to be homeless in Boulder? Here are the resources we can offer you. Come on down. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. It's just that was my initial reaction, and I have a twisted sense of humor. Oh, wow. 2017 homeless strategy is built around the belief that Boulder community members should have the opportunity for a safe and stable place to live. The strategy expands pathways to permanent housing and increases access to programs and services so you don't get murdered behind the Microsoft building. Okay, I better not read this live. This is definitely on my list of research for the post-trial study group, and you're welcome to look at it yourself. Anyway, Boulder has something called the Homeless Outreach Team. And on the last day that Zaria was seen alive, the day that she had soiled herself, she had contact with an officer from the Homeless Outreach Team who was wearing body-worn camera. And that's how they identified her body, is because that officer recognized the shoes that she was wearing because he spoke to her. This officer spoke to her on the day she was killed, or at least in the days thereby or there around. Okay, so the next thing I want to go to is Central Park. Central Park in Boulder is where Zaria met KiKi. It's where I think she met Little Bear. I don't have any personal experience there, and I'm in no hurry to go check it out. It would serve no good purpose. And me not being in this, I'm also glad that I'm not physically in court and that I'm appearing virtually. Anyway, Central Park is a big part of this case. It's basically the hub of homelessness. And there's another park very close, we'll get into that they call Drug Park. So there's Central Park and there's Drug Park. Something tells me that they're both drug parks. No offense, Boulder. Please don't get mad at me. I'm just, a public observer. This is not a critique on the work of law enforcement by any stretch of the imagination. It is an impossible job to do what they're doing. Okay, so according to the Boulder website, Central Park and Civic area looks like this. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I will say sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, okay? It's adjacent to the site of the Boulder County Farmers Market, featuring Boulder Creek access, a playground, and open turf for picnicking and other recreational activities. Just up the path is Everett Pearson Kids Fishing Pond. And then there is a design effort for Civic Area Phase 2. And there's a Phase 2 project, which we're not going to get into, but I'm definitely going to research. Arts in the Park. There is an amphitheater in Central Park. And it's apparently called the Historic Glen Huntington Bandshell. Nature play opportunities. Central Park provides children with access to Boulder Creek, whether it is by simply dipping their feet in the water or entering the water by tubing or kayaking. This creates an environment suitable for the exploration and discovery of nature along the creek's edges. Yeah, be careful. Some of the wildlife is pretty fucked up. Sorry, I wish I could say that I have Tourette's right now. I apologize. Central Park has a variety of educational signage regarding information about Boulder's flood history and control, water use, and native species, including the Gilbert White Memorial Flood Level Marker. See the Civic Area Phase 2 project page for more information on additional nature play. The Gilbert White Memorial Flood Level Marker is an 18-foot tall LED illuminated structure that shows the creek's 50-year, 100-year, 500-year, and Big Thompson historic flood levels. The structure was planned, designed, and constructed by a committee of Gilbert's colleagues, friends, and family who also helped raise funds for the marker with private contributions and fundraising events. The marker was donated to the city and is maintained by the Parks and Recreation Department. That is another thing that has come up in testimony, is there was apparently a recent... No, I'm sorry. I think I might be conflating two cases. Yep, I almost went into the other case. In the other case, they keep talking about how the placement of locations has changed because of pre-flood and post-flood. That was a different case. In that case, the crime happened in 2006 in the homeless community in Boulder, and they're trying to prove it in a court in 2025. And in this case, this happened July of 2024, and they're trying to prove it in December of 2025. Okay, so that is this, according to the city of Boulder, this is what Central Park is supposed to be. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. I never shared. All right, you guys got to call me on my shit. Okay, is it sharing now? Okay, Central Park and Civic Area. And then here's the image that I was talking about. And it's lovely, children and families and events, and it's clean and it's beautiful, and there's an amazing view. I mean, I would absolutely love to go to an event at that park, except I may have followed this case a little too closely, because when they describe the wildlife, I think of something that they don't want people to think of. Okay. So another thing that I did was I Googled which park in Boulder is called Drug Park. I knew it wasn't going to give me anything, but I did it anyway. And what I got is this. Central Park, 1236 Canyon Boulevard, Boulder, Colorado. There's a phone number. There's the eventseeker.com website, so that you can buy tickets to attend events in Central Park. And I found these images. And again, this is what came up under my search, which park in Boulder is called Drug Park. These photos of Central Park came up, not of the actual Drug Park, which is a different one we're going to get to in a second. So that was the first picture. This is another picture. And these are in, these are not in the main areas. This is down from the amphitheater. So here's another picture. You've got a duck, a plastic cup, which they frown upon in Colorado, A plastic cup, probably with a plastic straw. Trash on the ground in the park. Look, it's just one piece of trash. It's been a long week and I'm a little slap happy. And then there is someone's innocent child. I have no idea whose. Sorry, whoever's parents put this on the Central Park listing for the events at Central Park. I don't know why that would be there. That's sad. Okay. And then there's another duck in shallower waters. Here's a nice view of the creek. And I'm not sure where that is in the park, but somewhere. I mean, maybe at some point I'll go to Central Park and check it out in Boulder, but there is no way I'm going by myself. I'm sorry, Boulder, but it just doesn't sound like somewhere I want to be, other than virtually, which has been kind of freaking me out. Okay, so we'll get to the next screen share later. I'm going to take those off and we'll go on to the next thing. So the next thing that I want to bring up is a map. Let me take this out. Okay, there we go. We're down to only 2 people watching the live. I know it's a lot, but I got to get through this, and this is part of my process. This is why we do the study sessions on the members only, because most people don't want to hear me study a case like you're the voices in my head. But anyway, okay, so on the left is 1236 Canyon Boulevard. 1236 Canyon Boulevard is Central Park. So if you're looking at that purple line on the screen, what I did was I got directions, and I started at Central Park, which is the furthest left. And then I rode a bicycle to Circle K, which is next, right under the image of the bicycle that says 4 minutes. And then you take a bicycle from Circle K to 1650 Canyon Boulevard. That's Little Bear's spot. And then you take a bicycle to the spot where the body was dumped. And that's the furthest one on the right. So Central Park, Circle K, Jimmy's spot, and the body dump location. You can get from point number 1 to point number 2 in 4 minutes by bicycle. And that really, really puts it into perspective for me. Because I've never been to these places. But when I put this in, I'm like, wow, you've got to be kidding me. So to get from Central Park to Jimmy's spot is 4 minutes by bike with 2 stops, one at Circle K. Or no, I'm sorry. It's even less to get to Little Bear's spot. To get from Central Park to the body dump location is 4 minutes by bicycle. And it is much less. Let me see here. It is much less to get from Jimmy West Camp to the body dump location. But we're going to take that trek a little bit later. I just wanted you to see the whole thing, because according to all of the testimony, it's all about Central Park, Circle K, Little Bear's spot, the body dump location, and Drug Park, which I assume is Emma Gomez Martinez Park, just because it's the closest park to that location. I don't know that that's what they call Drug Park. I'm assuming. I could be wrong. I'll find out later. I don't know how deep I'm going to go. Do I need to know where Drug Park in Boulder is? Not friggin' really. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's the main map. And then I want to show you a couple of photos. So the first photo, this is 1855 Goss Street, and this image was taken by Google in June of 2024. So this image was taken 1 month or less before Zaria's body was found in this exact location. And so you look at the foliage and the trees and you know, and we'll follow the path. There's also body worn camera footage of investigators walking possible paths themselves from Little Bear's camp to the body dump site. Excuse me. It's just, you know, realizing that looking at this photo that's on the screen now, that's how green it was. That's how many trees there were. You know, I look forward to seeing the body camera footage. And then the next photo that I wanted to bring up, something that has come up in testimony, there's not a lot of digital evidence. Okay, Jimmy West, or Little Bear, he had 3 phones, not necessarily in his possession, but there were 3 phones that were found during searches. And 1, they did an extraction and found nothing of value to the case at all whatsoever. And then 2 other phones that were found at the camp were destroyed. And investigators were unable to do any sort of extraction because these cell phones were destroyed. For whatever reason, it's just one of the things that goes along with, you know, these homeless communities, right? I mean, look, I'm no expert. We're just, you know, we're studying. Anyway, nothing was found. There's not a bunch of digital evidence, but there is some. But one of the things, and I'll look through my notes and try to find it here. One of the things that, okay, so there were 2 destroyed phones, 1 working phone. I just saw those notes. Also, KiKi was in possession of Zaria's ring, a ring that you wear on your finger. KiKi was in possession of Zaria's ring during a police interview, and she turned it over to police. She said that somebody gave it to her. She didn't say that Little Bear gave it to her. She said somebody else had given it to her. And there was a photo of Zaria's ring on KiKi's phone. That was one of the things. And then you were able to look at dates and timestamps and stuff like that. God, there's just so much. Okay, now that I look at my notes exactly, he did say officers, or at least that's what I wrote down. Over 70 officers involved in the investigation as a whole. And they talked about motion-activated cameras at the Microsoft building. Now, the Microsoft building, you have to walk through the parking lot of the Microsoft building to get to the camp where Jimmy West was residing, even though he left it for a week at a time or weeks at a time. It was just what they called they called it Little Bear's spot, which was a 4-minute bicycle ride from Central Park. Anyway, so there are motion activated cameras in the parking lot of the Microsoft building, but they offered nothing. They offered no evidence for the case. Let's see. There were also, I thought that was where the notes were. Let me see. I know it was during, now another thing, Sergeant Scott Byers, the lead on the case, he is serving as an advisory witness. So he's in the courtroom the whole time, and he has testified multiple times throughout the week. He is basically doing what Kevin Clark did down in the 4th Judicial District against Letitia Stout. He's an advisory witness. But what I'm looking for specifically that I'm not seeing because I can't remember what day it was testified to is the different cameras that they used to look for evidence. Sorry, I guess we'll do it at another time. But Boulder County Sheriff's Office, Old Microsoft Building. Okay, here it is. Okay, so here's what I wrote down. Looking for bike trailer, did not observe it at any time. Flock safety cameras, and that's a touchy one around Colorado right now, because those flock safety cameras are license plate readers, and outside agencies are accessing this digital surveillance footage of our public spaces that are in place to read license plates, are being used for all sorts of other things. And here's one example of how else it's being used. They went through all of the flock safety cameras, but they found nothing of evidentiary value. They also went through RTD cameras. Now, RTD is the transit system, the buses in Boulder are RTD buses. And they reviewed approximately 4 RTD cameras at the Walnut location. So not at individual bus stops, but at the bus, I guess, transfer station. I'm not sure. Anyway, and then I have the words 21 files. Nope. Some issues with files. So there's some missing footage that they couldn't access. But on July 14th, oh, okay, I see. I'm reading my notes wrong. Sorry, guys. Okay, there's a difference. This is very confusing. There's a difference. The RTD footage is actually, okay, it says RTD footage at Walnut and then RTD footage at Denver. And so the Denver RTD footage from July 14th shows Jimmy West talking to police, and there's a police report in Denver. And the officer in Denver was Officer Chintoiloy, and he's patrol public safety, and he works bus stops, transport, etc. And so that was at Union Station on July 14th on track 7 in front of a hotel. That's where this officer had recorded interaction with Jimmy West on the day that Zaria's body was found in Denver, not in Boulder. Which again doesn't prove that he didn't do it, but it just keeps adding to all this reasonable doubt. So I say all that. I was just on my mind were all the camera systems and the way they describe all of these things that they can access to prove, hopefully beyond a reasonable doubt, that what they said happened. And so I was moving around on Google Maps, and I went to Central Park on Google Maps, and I just tried to see whatever I could see. I just took a little tour, and we're going to do that, and then I'm going to get off of here because it's been a jam-packed 2 hours of me, or at least it will be at that point, jam-packed 2 hours of me rambling about myself studying these cases. Okay, so this is a screenshot of what I found. And to the bottom left is a big boulder that says Central Park. So this is at Central Park. And one of the things that they testified that they pulled footage from is they said that there were 3 cameras on top of a trailer, and they move that trailer to various hotspots depending on what they're looking for or where they want to run surveillance. So this belongs to the police department, I think. And they move this trailer around Central Park, and everything is recorded. And so I just and we'll probably see that when we take our little tour. But I just wanted to show you, what they were talking about with some of the camera footage. So it's not that high off of the ground. But that's what it looks like. And listen, if you're one of these people and you're doing stuff, it's not that hard to avoid these cameras, is it? It's an eyesore. I think it's meant to deter, but that, they're also not capturing what's happening behind the Microsoft building. Not that they're supposed to. There are so many issues, and it's easy to assume that I'm on the side of the defense. I absolutely am not. I'm on the side of the people. I am part of the people. I am a Colorado voter. I'm literally part of the people of the state of Colorado, which is who is prosecuting this case. And the only power that I have in the courtroom is with respect to who I vote for as a district attorney or a judge or whatever. I didn't vote in that district. I vote in the 4th Judicial District because I'm in Colorado Springs. But the people who voted in the 20th Judicial District voted for that judge and Michael Doherty as the district attorney, right? Which is who this is under. He's not prosecuting the case himself, but deputy district attorneys are, which again is a representative of people that were voted into office by the people of the state of Colorado, and that's who they represent. They don't necessarily represent the victim. I mean, they do. Their goal is to get justice for the victim, but who the prosecution is representing in the courtroom is the people of the state of Colorado. In the people's quest to get justice for Zaria Hardy. So if I'm on a team, technically, I am on the side of the prosecution by default because I'm a Colorado voter. Anyway, I'm a big fan of transparency, and I'm glad that we have it. So the next thing I want to do, and then we're going to get off of here. Let me remove this. I'll leave the map up if we need it. But what I want to do is share my screen one final time for a little Google Maps tour. Okay, let me make sure that it is added to the stage. And I'm going to leave the jury up there because I leave my 12 shadowy figures at the bottom of the screen. I leave the jury up there to remind me where I am. And where I am is I am not a member of the jury. That's who it's up to. It only matters what they think. It does not matter what I think or anybody else. It matters what these 12 figures represent, the people that these 12 figures represent. It matters what they think. And I have to remember that I am not them. And also, they have been purposely told not to do everything that we're doing here this evening. They are not to look at media coverage. They are not to go around, and the courthouse is like right in the neighborhood, okay? They probably pass all of this stuff on their way home. There's a good chance. Anyway, so we're doing what the jury can't do, and we have to remember that. So as I'm forming my own opinion based on the independent research I'm doing with open records and just other open source intelligence, I'm coming to my own conclusions, which don't matter, because what I'm really researching here, again, I'm not a citizen detective. I'm not researching this case. But I do want to know what the truth is, because confusion is the theme of court based on what I've seen at trial. It's very confusing, and the defense, while Jimmy West is not going to testify, the two hostile witnesses who are going to testify in custody, to me, are quite compelling for reasonable doubt. And if Jimmy West really did commit this murder or sex traffic that little girl, then that's a damn shame. Now, is there anything I can do about it? No. But I don't want to be fed any bullshit about what actually happened. I want to know what happened in court. I want to know why it happened in court. I'm a big fan of due process. I try to give the presumption of innocence. I do the best I can. Anyway, here we are. Let's go Google mapping. This is the intersection of 17th and Canyon Boulevard. Canyon Boulevard, if you remember, is the longest line from Central Park all the way till you get to Jimmy West camp. Okay. So if you're coming from Central Park, or if you're coming from Circle K, which are two places that are constantly part of this trial, if you're going to Little Bear's spot from Central Park or Circle K, you're going to come to this intersection and you're going to go this way. Okay, down 17th. On your right in this image is the Microsoft building. And then you see all of this grouping of trees here at the end of the parking lot. We'll go a little closer so you can see better. Okay, now we're at the end of the Microsoft parking lot. So you cut into the parking lot here and take a right, which we can't do on Google Maps. And then, you're getting closer to all of these trees, but see how, and these trees are here because if you keep, whoop, I went too far. If you keep going, let's get back. Okay, Microsoft building on the right, and here's the creek. This is the creek that they've been talking about in trial all week. And this is where Little Bear's camp is. That on the right, again, is the intersection off Canyon, which is how you get to Circle K and Central Park. You come to this intersection, you go down this sidewalk, and there are cameras at the Microsoft building, but they are motion activated and they don't cover the areas that people use to get in and out of Little Bear's spot. So Little Bear's spot is back here somewhere, right along the creek, because something else that I've heard over and over all week is how investigators had a hard time bracing themselves to not fall into the creek. So his encampment, it's been described a bunch of ways. Let me just look at those notes really quick. That was fairly recently. And I'll tell you the exact words that they used to describe the camp, and that'll give you a better idea with this actually on the screen. Or not. Look, it's all handwritten notes. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm specifically looking for the notes that I took during one of Sergeant Byers' testimony during one of the times he was up on the stand. Anyway, I'm having a hard time finding it because my notes aren't as organized as I would like for them to be. But from memory, I can tell, oh, here it is. Okay, so it was not Sergeant Byers. It was Detective Max Newsel from the Boulder Police Department, and he's in the Major Crimes Unit. And on July 17th, which was 3 days after Zaria's body was found, he was assigned to execute a search warrant on the south side of 1650 North Canyon, which is the Microsoft building. And when he was on the stand, he was asked to describe the encampment. And remember, this is being searched 3 days after Jimmy West is on camera talking to cops in Denver. Now we're back in Boulder 3 days after that at Little Bear's camp. And The body was found on the 14th, and he was already in Denver. Did he leave? Did he just leave the camp with all of that evidence in it? Or was he really gone a week? It's so confusing. Okay, anyway, so this is how Detective Newsel described the camp. He used the word difficult. He said that there was trash debris all over the place. He said that he was unable to physically stand up because it was so compact, and the trees, hung pretty low. So it's not like, and it wasn't inside of a tent. The trees were the structure, and stuff was hung off of tree branches, and there was trash everywhere. And so I wrote down specifically potential to fall toward water, because he talked about having a hard time bracing himself as he is searching this camp. He had to brace himself so he didn't fall down into the water, which, once again, that's the water, right? And Jimmy, and this image that we're zooming around in right now, this is from June of 2024. So imagine Zaria was killed in July of 2024, and they have not proven, and they have not tried to prove specifically that Zaria was killed at this camp. I mean, it's what they're saying, but they have, at no point have they said Zaria was killed at this camp, and then her body was, not that I remember hearing. But I've taken in so much information this week, I'm surprised that my head has not physically exploded. And it'll get better as these trials wrap up and I continue to process, if I haven't driven all of the viewers away with all of my rambling. Anyway, okay, this is the water that Detective Newsel said it was hard to search on July 17th because he couldn't stand all the way up. It was compact, and there was a potential to fall toward the water. And then when he described all of the stuff that was scattered throughout the area that's called Little Bear Spot, he described bicycle parts, trash debris, electronics, trash, drug stuff. So there's drug paraphernalia. There's all kinds of stuff there, on top of, what they found. And I wrote down the exhibit numbers, but there's also body-worn camera footage of the encampment, and I want to see it myself. A lot of Zaria's injuries were to the top of her head. I don't remember hearing anything about any chairs anywhere. I don't, I have so many questions. And again, I'm not investigating the case. I'm just so confused by what's been presented at trial by the people, for the people. And I'm the people. I'm one of the people. Anyway. So there are screenshots of the body cam, which were exhibits 73, 74, 77, 84, 85, 86, 87, and 88 that they went over during his testimony, and the body-worn camera footage. And I didn't write it down. I can't remember if they reviewed the body camera footage or not, but I wrote it down and highlighted it because I knew that it existed, and I didn't feel like his testimony, without me being able to see for myself those images they were talking about, and body cam, if they showed it, when they show body cam and you're on WebEx, you can hear what's happening in the body cam. You can hear the witness and the attorney describe what's happening on the body cam, but you can't see the body cam. You know what I mean? So I want to see the body cam, because if nothing else, and again, I'm not a citizen detective, I'm not trying to solve a crime, but if nothing else, then I can add that to my limited experience watching the WebEx in the virtual courtroom. And I can go, oh, okay, well, now and it'll come together a little bit differently for me. I won't be able to compare it to his actual testimony, but I can compare it to the notes of two people. I can talk to other people who attended the trial. I can talk to people, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. It depends on how satisfied I feel after that verdict comes. And we're getting close because tomorrow is closing arguments. And so I want to have all of this together in my mind before closing arguments, before the verdict. Because depending on which way the verdict goes, that's going to affect my curiosity and how curious I am and what open records I'm going to go for and what I'm going to look at and for what reason. I will be checking myself along the way and asking myself, why do I need to know this? and I'll answer those questions for myself. Okay, I'm not going to get through every witness that testified and all of that. We've got 8 minutes before I wrap up. What I want to do is go to a couple of the other locations. So here's the Circle K. Well, no, actually, I am missing an image that I meant to bring up. Let me see if I saved it, because this one was important. Okay, there's the image of that. Yep, there it is. Okay. Okay, so instead of starting at Circle K, we're going to start at Central Park. So when you look up 1236 Canyon Boulevard on Google Maps, this is the initial image that comes up. This is the rear side of the amphitheater, and the park is all around it. And so when we go to, the place where we can walk around, then we can explore a little bit. Let me make sure this is coming through on my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's some porta potties back here. And it looks like a sink. And listen, people are living in Central Park. The witness, KiKi, they said, well, where do you sleep? And she just said, out under the stars in the park. I'm going to do some research, but I look, it's not an expose, and I have no critique of the Boulder Police Department. I have always been impressed with the Boulder Police Department as far as this homicide and domestic violence cases research goes. Okay. Anyway, so porta potties and a sink behind the amphitheater is the first thing that I notice. Pretty busy street. There's trash cans. It looks pretty clean, right? Let's go down and see if we can get closer to the park. It says do not enter, but we don't have to follow traffic laws. Do not enter bicycles and people on YouTube and Google Maps accepted only. Okay, so can I get any closer to the park? No, this is as far as I can go, but I can look that way. All right, let's just see what we can see from the sidewalk, since that's public. And remember, this is a month or less before Zaria was killed. I don't have a Google Maps access for current images. Okay. It's like some construction vehicles, which, again, I'm not investigating. Some more trash cans. There's those porta potties. Let's see. God, I really would. Oh, we can go down the trail. Oh, we're in business. I forgot we could go down the trail. Okay, so to the left is the creek, obviously. To the right is part of Central Park. And this up here is that boulder I was talking about. So this is the boulder that says Central Park. And in June of 2024, there was a trailer with 3 cameras run by solar electricity right here. Boulder Creek Path that way, 13th Street Broadway North, Pearl Street Mall. And then you can see more into the park over here. But this is Central Park. Here's somebody riding their bicycle. Looks like you can bump over to the left here. There's a bridge, looks like a walking path. This really reminds me, at this part, this reminds me of Durango and the river. Recycle and landfill, not a lot of trash, looks pretty clean. We're spinning in circles. All right, get me back to the boulder. There's the boulder. We came from that way. Whoops, I didn't mean to go back that way. Okay, back to the boulder. I'm going to see if we can go right into the park anymore. There's more of the park. And we see on the bike trails what looks like the top of the Google Maps employee's hair. I think he's got a camera above him on a bicycle is what's happening here. Okay. Looks like this is the bus stop. There's somebody looking at him like, what is this asshole with a camera on his head? Well, he's from Google Maps. So people sit here. Looks like there's purposeful graffiti that may have even been done by the city or the Parks and Rec department, or maybe even the bus, maybe even the RTD, who knows? Keep it clean, put stuff in the trash. I don't know. Looks like a picture of the planet. I don't know. I can't get any closer. I can't get close enough to see what it says there. Looks like there's some more stuff over here. I mean, look, it's definitely not what we saw on Boulder's website, right? But it's also not too terribly bad. Google tagged the wall as well. Interesting. But people sit back here right behind the bus stop all the time, apparently, allegedly. I don't know firsthand. But they're like, hey, what are you looking at? Whatever. This is further down the sidewalk. Here's the bus stop. Not looking good at the bus stop. So here is a shopping cart full of somebody's belongings with no apparent human that it belongs to. We can guess that it belongs to one of these 2 people, which may or may not be the people that we saw when we were coming from the other direction. Oh my gosh, where did you put me? Oh, I ended up back. Oh, you guys, it kicked me out on the other side. Okay. Here we go. Back to. So there's the sign again. Bridges, all that stuff. Please don't get vertigo on my account. Back to the bus stop. I mean, who knows what all that stuff is? Okay, back to the bus stop. So these nice folks who are like, what the hell do you want? That shopping cart probably, most likely, belongs to one of these 2 people. These 2 anonymous, unnamed people. We go back around. Now this is a different image, obviously. Well, I mean, they're still pretty much in the same position. But this is the bus stop from the front side. I mean, who knows what kind of stuff people carry around? Look, there's a blanket. Let me see. I'm looking in a stranger's shopping cart, guys. Some sort of blanket, a pillow, some bags. Looks like some hospital socks. I don't know. I mean, it looks like this might not belong to them at all. This might just be filled with items that may or may not help homeless people who walk by it. This could just be, leave a book, take a book, right? Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, so going further, Central Park, which is, where? Oh, what is this now? I didn't go down here before. Oh boy. So this is close enough to the bus stop. This is running parallel with Canyon Boulevard, which is the way to Circle K and the way to Little Bear's Camp and the way to the body dump site. And now we've gone over by 2 minutes, but we're going to keep going a little. This is on Google Maps in Central Park. Look at the shit back here. Over here. I don't know who this guy is. His face is blurred out. His hand is wrapped in some sort of yellow bandana. He's shoeless and sunburnt. Shirtless. Drinking who knows what. There's trash everywhere. Here's a suitcase, a bag. Here's one person who's hanging around here with, is this an encampment? Right here where the tourist information is. This is what it was like in July of 2024. And the homeless outreach team was walking around all the time and knew who all these people were, knew who all these players were. I don't even want to know what's in the guy's hand, right? How clear is the photo? I don't know what it is. It could be anything. And I'm not trying to mess with these people's identity. Their faces are blurred. Okay, I don't know who these people are. But there's shit strewn about, water bottles, tent material. This is probably pretty similar. Oh, that's a cooler. That's not a suitcase. It's a cooler. This is probably pretty similar to what it looked like in the woods. All kinds of stuff. What is that, a crowbar? A giant crowbar. For all we know, that's the murder weapon. Okay, this was September 2024, so probably not. Okay, so this I just looked at. I'm sorry, I got a little upset just looking at this crap. Oh, it is not that I do not understand the plight. It's that it hits too close to home. So please do not think that I am judging these people. It hits too close to home. And it's upsetting, and it's sad, and it makes me angry. And there's no way I'm going to this place by myself. I don't care. I don't care historical this, historical that. I don't care. This is, no. It's, oh, Boulder, do better. Anyway, okay, again, I sound judgmental, and I apologize. So zooming out and seeing that this is actually from September of 2024. So Zaria's body was found on July 14th, 2024. This is September 2024. Okay. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's because I'm trying to remember it. This is the first time I'm seeing this, and all of the things I've heard about in trial. Honestly, I'm looking around to see if anything is recognizable that came up in the case. But I don't think that it would be, because the homeless outreach team scraped the campsite where Jimmy West was. They put everything onto a tarp and took it to the police station. Is that a shoe? What does she have, a shoe? I don't know. But again, okay, somebody gave this woman, I don't know who she is, but I promise you somebody gave her that shirt. September of 2024, Jimmy West could have given that woman that shirt, okay? He wasn't arrested yet. He wasn't arrested until 6 months later. He was arrested in January of 2025. We could see him walking around Google. Nope, that's the way I came from. Okay, so here's these cameras right here. Like, don't mess around, folks. And then right there is the bus stop, which is clearly a hot spot. But over here is definitely a hot spot. I mean, look, these people are not gathered here to study the Bible, okay? All right, I'm going to quit tripping on it. All right, we're which way do we go, ladies and gentlemen? Looks like there's an X there. So it looks like if we go this way, it's a more public area of the park. We'll turn around and go back down the other path. And then this comes up to bikes that you can rent. Okay, so we're back to a beautiful area. I mean, look at the artwork. Boulder, look, you guys, I would never shit on Boulder. I loved Boulder. I used to work in Boulder. I used to shoot pool in Boulder. I have friends who have lived in Boulder their whole life. Boulder is not a bad place. This is just a bad story. So here's another Boulder that says Central Park. This poor innocent lady, at least she's blurred out. Okay, so, uh-oh, what happened? Okay, we're going back, we're going back. We're going back. Okay, there's these fine folks. Here's another encampment. That's as far as I can go, but I can zoom in. Okay, so again, it's not a tent per se. That's as far as I can zoom in. But we've got an umbrella, we've got a shopping basket, we've got somebody laying there by the way, in the middle of summer, camouflaged in winter coats and clothing, okay, hidden by an umbrella. We've got the tarp over the encampment. I don't know, that looks like a Crown Royal bag to me, a Walmart bag. So that's one person who's hiding behind the umbrella, and I think that might actually be a second person. Yeah, I have no idea, but I know, again, they're not studying the Bible back there. And there's all these cameras. Look, there's a camping chair. That's a nice little spot you got there. I mean, I understand that homelessness is an issue. It is an issue that I do not have an easy answer to, right? I'm not just talking shit for the sake of talking shit. I'm disturbed by what I'm learning, and I would like to look for solutions to it. Looks like this is a jogger on the trail. Let me just look behind us here as we continue down the path. I mean, would you want to go down this path after passing that stuff? I mean, this is crazy to me. Whoa, wait a minute. Did we just jump trails? Is that blood? Oh my God. I think we just jumped trails. Oh, I got us lost, you guys. Yeah, this is apparently you get back out onto Arapahoe Boulevard. Okay. Let's look where we're going. Fenced off to keep people out. This could be this looks like a brand new fence. This could be the phase 2 construction they were talking about. This will all make sense if I go myself and walk these trails, but I don't want to. Oh my God, I've gotten us completely lost. We might have to go back. Okay, real quick. Real quick. There's those. Come on, Google Maps. You confused me entirely. I'm sorry, you guys. Or maybe I'll just save this for another time. I got us lost. We jumped from one trail to another. And this is not the same path that we took in. Because remember, yeah, this is not the same path. This is from a different way. There's a fence between the bike path and the creek. This is not the best live stream, I know. Is this... I don't know if I'm going the right way. Underpass closed. I don't... All right, guys. Look, I'm just going to stop. I mean, we don't need to be here all night. I've gotten us lost. I'm going to continue to do this on my own time, and I'm going to let you guys go with just, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I appreciate you for being here. I'm going to continue to search around this area. I'm going to continue watching the trial. Unfortunately, I can't share it with you, but believe me when I say that I am gathering as much information as I can, because I can't make it make sense. Where is Zaria's on again, off again boyfriend? Where are the headlines that we've been seeing for a year about how this young lady was sold for drugs? None of that is being proven in court. And the boyfriend is nowhere to be found. And with any other witness, they go out and they find them and they throw them in jail and they force them to testify. It's happened twice now. So I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm frustrated. And this is convoluted as hell. But at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I will be in the virtual courtroom. Anyone else who is willing, who catches this in time and is willing to watch it in real time and willing to talk to me about it, that would be amazing. Otherwise, I'm going to keep studying. And thank you for listening to my crazy. I'm going to let Kilo outside again, refill my Diet Coke, and keep exploring Google Maps and all of these locations. We were going to start with Central Park, but I just got so caught up with Central Park that we didn't even take the 4-minute bicycle ride to Circle K and Little Bear Spot. Anyway, tomorrow's a new day. Court will be in session in exactly 25 hours. No, I'm sorry. 12 hours. 13 hours. Okay. Yeah, my math is finally mathing. Court is back in session in 13 hours. I'm going to try and get some rest. I'm going to take care of some personal things. I'm not going to go live on this anytime soon because all I do is babble. I'm going to continue gathering the evidence. I'm going to continue studying. And then I'm going to put out some pre-recorded videos that are just me showing you the results of my research, not of the case. I'm not a citizen detective. I seek to understand due process in this case. That's it. That's it. I will see you guys soon. I just don't know when. If you do watch court tomorrow in Colorado's case against Jimmy West, and there are plenty of links on my community page. I'll even go ahead and link it in the description of this video. If you do watch tomorrow's WebEx live stream, Will you send me an email so we can talk about it? Because I can't talk to the regular people in my life about this. They already think I'm batshit. Okay, on that note, good night. Talk to you soon.